Hey, you guys, it's your gay sports fanatic here, and we are up to college football week 14. It's Thanksgiving week, and we are at the end of the regular season. It's hard to believe, it's pretty sad, but we got a lot of great stuff coming up. I'm going to talk about here, I'm going on a rant, so just bear with me, okay? And it's about this college football playoff. First, let me say the positive thing. I love that it's went from 4 to 12. I love the 12 team playoff. What I don't like is the way this is structured, which is where you've got conferences that have no business getting their champion in a top four seed. They're going to get them in. And of course, this year I'm talking specifically about the ACC, the Big 12, and now Boise State, who's come out of nowhere and is going to actually take a bye probably on the top four. I just don't, none of this sits with me at all. It's just bad. And what it is when to make something work, you give something of equal footing to some other entity or someone else that you know is not as good, but you treat them as if they're equal so that they'll go along. Well, that's exactly what the NCAA and the SEC and the Big Ten had to do. Everybody knows the SEC and the Big Ten are the two best conferences, without a doubt. Everybody knows those are two big boys on the block, but you can't offend the feelings of the little boys on the block. That would be the Big 12, which flat out stinks this year in football. The ACC has had some good years with Clemson, and Miami some years, but no, not in a long time. And then Boise State out of the Mountain West. I mean, who knows what to think of that? But in other words, they're not getting these based on merit. They're getting it because of who they are. That never works well. But they had to do this to get this thing done. So here we sit, we're stuck with it. You know what? If I'd had my way, this is the way this would be done. You'd take the top 12 teams and just flat take the best 12 of the lot. I don't care what conference you're in. And I also want to know who you played. I'm not going to just look at your wins over a bunch of nobodies. I want to see who you've won, and also just as important, who you've lost to and how close have you kept that? Did you lose a close game? Because not all schedules are anywhere near created equal. Does anybody really believe that Boise State, anybody in the ACC, or anybody in the Big 12 has played a schedule comparable to anyone in the SEC? So the teams that are looking to get left out in the cold, Alabama, maybe Texas A&M. I'll got something to say about that a little bit later, and Ole Miss. I will tell you that I don't believe any Big 12 team could beat any one of those three on any given Saturday. I also don't believe in the ACC. Miami might be able to rise up. SMU, I don't have a clue about SMU. I have my real doubts that they would. But Boise State, I don't think so. So, these teams that deserve to be in are going to get left out because of one thing, pure politics. And I'll tell you what, if this keeps up year after year, as long as this goes on, if I were the SEC, the Big Ten, and maybe bring Notre Dame along, I might just say, forget it. Just forget it. We're going to go off on our own, do our own playoff, and the rest of you can go play over in another sandbox somewhere. But anyway, we got to deal with what we got to deal with. So right now we're looking at a 1 seed probably out of the Big Ten, a 2 seed out of the SEC, a 3 seed, which will probably come at this point from the ACC, or it could be Boise State, believe it or not, or the 4th seed, whether it be ACC or Boise State. And it's the Big 12 who's not going to get a first round bye, and that's okay because they don't deserve it. In fact, they don't deserve to be in this at all. So I'm going to start with the Big 12 on this topic. There is not one team in the Big 12, if you were ranking the top 12 teams in the country, forget conferences, just the best 12 teams in the country. There is not one team in the Big 12 conference that deserves to be in this playoff. Not one. None of the Colorado and all this hype, all the commercials, I don't mind Colorado at all, but it's just a lot of flash, a lot of sizzle. They don't play a tough schedule and they lose. And the rest of this crowd, Arizona State, heck, everybody's in the race for this thing. Texas Tech, Iowa State, none of these teams deserve to be playing for a national title against anybody. So for the Big 12, it's a big zero. None of you should be in, but you will. Next up is the ACC. Okay. Frankly, do I think any of them should be in either? No, I don't. But Miami or SMU will get in, and I'll tell you what, there's a chance they both get in. I'm not kidding either. So I mean, over in Alabama again, an Ole Miss, over at Texas A&M, they get in. Even on maybe a South Carolina, they don't deserve it. So I mean, one team max, either SMU or Miami. Neither has played a tough schedule. Miami has looked terrible the last couple of weeks. These teams are not in the big leagues, but maybe one there. That brings me to Boise State, who last week barely beat Wyoming. They were behind late in the fourth quarter. Boise State has played no one. I'm going to ask it again. Does anybody believe if Boise State played an SEC schedule or a Big Ten schedule, they'd be undefeated? No way. There's not a chance in the world that they would. And that's all I have to say about that. Yet watch. Boise State will be a third or fourth seed with a bye. Just watch. So that's my feeling about this playoff. I like the 12. I think the structure sucks because teams get in because of not of what they've done, but who they are, because they're in a conference that knows when they set this up that they don't have the power or the teams that the Big Ten and the SEC has, but they've got to be treated as equals to make this thing be agreed to or go forward. So that's where we are. We'll see in 5 years if this is still the case here, if it keeps happening that good Big Ten and SEC teams are knocked out. So, having said that, I do think the Big Ten is going to get 4 teams in. So, obviously, Ohio State and Oregon are in. Penn State will get in. Now, I'm not going to make the case that Penn State has played some tough schedule. They have not. But they're in the Big Ten. They have played some games. So, and for Indiana, even worse. Their schedule has been really pretty weak for a Big Ten schedule. They have no signature win. Michigan would be it. And they got drilled by Ohio State last week. Even saying that, Indiana's only got one loss. They'll beat Purdue this weekend. I'm leaving them in the top 12. I don't really have a lot of problems with that. On the SEC side, though, I've already beat this dead horse to a pulp. There's 3 teams, 2 teams for sure, that will get left out of this that flat deserve to be in it. And particularly, I'm looking at Alabama on that. So you guys, that's my rant. For all you Big 12, Boise State, ACC lovers out there, prove me wrong and have better teams next year, or prove me wrong and do something in this tournament, in this playoff. In previous years, we've had Cincinnati that made the Final Four, got drilled. TCU made it, lost to Georgia 65-3. It was 48-0 at the half. I mean, they do this to make these people feel good because they know they don't belong there, but it's a way to keep the peace. So here we are. Again, you can always prove me wrong on the field, not in a poll, on the field. So let's see if you can do it. Anyway, let's move on to my predictions. I've had a good year with them. So if you've been betting with me, you've made some money. We're going to start off with the biggest game of the week, and that is Texas at Texas A&M. Huge rivalry. There could not be more on the line. The winner gets a place in the SEC title game. And this is especially critical for Texas A&M because, as I've explained here, they're on the outside looking in on this college football playoff. Texas A&M really has to win this game and get to the SEC title game and maybe win it to get in the playoffs. So for A&M, they're playing for their life here. Texas is playing to get into that SEC title game and get that first round bye. Even if Texas were to lose, they're going to get in and they deserve it, okay? So anyway, let's get to the spread here. Texas is going into Kyle Field, which, as I've said all years, were 7 points to Texas A&M. Texas is giving away 5.5, so A&M gets 5.5. And I'll tell you what, I'm taking Texas A&M in the 5.5. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if Texas A&M just flat out wins this game. In fact, I'm going to give it Texas A&M a 45% chance to win this game. So you bettors, you might want to just take the money line on this, but I like A&M plus the 5.5. Next, probably the greatest rivalry maybe in sports, certainly probably is in college football, and that is the great rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State. This is at the Horseshoe in Columbus. And can you believe this spread? Michigan is a 20.5 point underdog. They won the national title last year. They're that big of an underdog to Ohio State. Uh, I happen to think, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I tell you what, I'm taking Ohio State and giving away the 20 and a half. I think they're going to drill Michigan. I think they're going to love every single minute of it. There's nothing they love more than just if they get a chance to beat the heck out of Michigan. It doesn't happen all that often, but I think this year that's going to be the case. Next up, another classic rivalry. Notre Dame at USC in the Coliseum. Notre Dame, of course, is right up there at the top. Also, cannot get a bye. That's nothing I don't like about this playoff. Notre Dame has no way to get in the top 4 slots and get a bye. No chance. I don't like that. That's not fair. They're certainly better than 2 of the 4 that will. But Notre Dame is going to USC and they're giving away 7.5 points. I don't like that. That's too many points for me to go out to the Coliseum in a rivalry game. USC is going to get up for this. They've had a very, very disappointing season. Notre Dame's really been playing really well. They've been on a roll. I think Notre Dame will win, but I like USC with 7.5. I think they're going to keep this really close within a touchdown. So give me USC and a 7.5. If this somehow drops below 7, bail. Next to Ohio State and Michigan, probably the greatest rivalry in college football is Auburn at Alabama, the Iron Bowl. And Alabama's got something to prove this year, folks. And once again, like I said about that Ohio State game, I think this one's going to be a little different. Usually these kind of big rivalry games at the end of the year, huge games, are pretty close. I don't think so this year. I think Alabama is out for blood. I think they want to prove this committee wrong. Alabama is a 16.5-point underdog. Take Alabama, throw away the points. Next up, we have Purdue at Indiana. Purdue, who's just plain awful. Indiana on its way to an 11-1 season, I might add, and will not be in the Big Ten title game, which they'll be glad they're not in it, so they can just go right into the playoff. Again, they really haven't played anybody, but I'm not going to keep harping on that. Purdue is getting 29.5 points, 29.5 points. I'm going to take Purdue. That's too many points. Give me Purdue. I think they can keep it within 30. Next, we have Washington at Oregon. Oregon, who's really looked great all season. They've had some, at Wisconsin, some tough games. I do think Oregon is the real deal here. Oregon is giving away 17.5, so they're a 17.5-point favorite against Washington at home. I like Washington and a 17.5. I don't think they'll win the game, but I think this is going to be closer than that. So give me Washington. I'll take the 17.5. And last but not least, we have Maryland that is at Penn State. Penn State also is rolling for the college football playoff. They deserve it. I'd put them in. They will not be, from the way I see it, they will not make the Big Ten title game. I'm sure they're glad they're not. Something about these conference title games, you guys, I'm going to talk about this next week. I don't like these conference title games at all. But anyway, that's for next week. Right now, Penn State is giving away 24.5 to Maryland. Maryland is absolutely terrible. I like Penn State to cover this spread. So take Penn State, throw away the 24.5. I know it's a lot of points, but Maryland's awful. Penn State wants to go out on a high note on what's been really an excellent season for them. So those are the picks, you guys. It's kind of sad. This is the last week in, 9 months that I'll be doing a full slate of picks like this. I mean, I'll be doing a full slate. I guess I'll have 7 picks. Well, no, I won't when we get to the playoff. But so it's kind of melancholy that I make these picks this week because I love doing this. So, and for those of you that have watched, I really want to thank you very much. The best is yet to come, you guys. We've got this great playoff, except for the things I told you, and of course, we've got the conference championships first. I'll be covering that. I don't like them, but I'm going to cover them next week. Then we're going to get into this playoff. So the best is yet to come, you guys, and you have a great Thanksgiving. To you and your family, terrific Thanksgiving. As usual, be sure to like. If you'd like to comment, I'll bet there's a lot of Big 12, Boise State, and ACC people out there that would love to comment on this. And then also, please subscribe if you want to see all of my videos and be notified of all of my videos when I do them. So I do about 2 a week. So anyway, you guys, thank you and happy Thanksgiving.